9 of the Tom Girardi trial, and it looks like the end is near. Judge Staten has said that closing arguments will be done August 26, less than a week away. I thought maybe there'd be more defense witnesses. They have been interspersing these defense witnesses in the prosecutor's case in chief, but there must not be too many left because next Monday we only have a couple more days of trial before closing arguments. So the defense must be getting near to the end. What do you think?
I think they're getting near to the end, and I think the defense is doing the best they can here with what they have to work with. It looks like they're simply poking holes. They're trying to sow doubt, just a little bit of doubt in the minds of the jurors as to did Tom Girardi really do these things, or were these other operatives around him, were they doing it? Did they take advantage of him? And of course, did he have the mental capacity to even understand what he was doing during this time? They're going to continue to beat that drum. That'll be the closing argument as well. Does not look like they're going to be calling Tom Girardi to the stand. That's probably a good thing, but we don't know. Maybe they'll surprise us and put him on the stand. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting, but any decent criminal defense attorney would advise against that. Now, going to your point of other people being blamed, we had a girlfriend of Cayman, and last name is Rokita. Did you get her first name?
Nicole
Rokita. And of course, she's coming in and she's talking about all the things that Cayman was up to in terms of the money he was using. So apparently he's using credit cards from Girardi and Keese to pay for her trips, to pay for a home that he purchased for her, and funneling money into businesses such as a salon, a restaurant, a construction company, and some business that rented out stripper poles, apparently, which I didn't even know was a business. All of which is being paid from Girardi and Keese. And this goes to the defense's argument that poor Tom Girardi is just being duped by Cayman. What were your thoughts in terms of Rokita's testimony?
Well, all of that can be true, and all of it can still be true that Tom Girardi stole it from his clients. I think that's kind of interesting. This Nicole Rokita, she's 24 years old, and Christopher Cayman at this time is 44 years old. So there's a 20-year difference between them. Not a huge deal, but it's an interesting fact in this trial that we're watching. Also interesting is that Cayman was paying her $20,000 a month, paying for her house, paying for her trips. Apparently, she'd asked him about a bank account at some point that was supposed to be in her name, and he got mad at her. He also called her once the house of cards fell here. He calls up his 24-year-old girlfriend and tells her that he's going to flee the country, and just some very bizarre, confusing statements. But in the end, Keith, Christopher Cayman sounds like he may not be a saint. It sounds like he might even be in trouble for what he's done, and he'll be tried for that next year. That does not absolve Tom Girardi. And what I would like the defense to do, and I don't think they can do it, it's the problem. I would like them to run head into the problem that Tom Girardi did not do this and prove to the jury that he did not do these things. But they can't do that because the evidence is pointing that he did do these things, and we're going to find out more about who was really in control of the keys to the attorney-client trust account in a few minutes as we go over this.
So then Rokita testified that 4 years after they broke up, when everything is going south with Girardi and Keese, Cayman calls her and says, I'm going to flee to the Bahamas. I'm selling all of my assets. I'm going to change my name. And apparently he's taking off. And we did see testimony before that Cayman did, in fact, flee to the Bahamas. He was apprehended when he flew back to Baltimore. I don't know why he flew back. But he's even telling his ex-girlfriend about how, I'm going to flee to the Bahamas. So we again have all things that are certainly incriminating for Cayman, but really kind of irrelevant one way or the other for Girardi, it seems to me. The defense attorney also, during a discussion with the judge when the jury was not in the courtroom, was talking about how important it was to have this ex-girlfriend testify because it's truly getting into the theory of their case. And the prosecutor says, this is getting to the point of just being cumulative. What does that mean, just being cumulative?
Well, you're just putting the same argument on over and over again in front of the jury, hoping that the jury will latch on to it. I will say I'm sensitive to the defense here in the sense that I don't think they're correct in what their theory of the case is. I think it's going to be a loser. But whenever I've try to make points at trial as a lawyer. The other side, when I'm scoring points, will say, Your Honor, this is just cumulative at this point in time. And some judges buy that. Other judges are like, no, the lawyer's doing a good job of pointing this out. So it's a fine line. We're not there in the courtroom. We're just reading the press clippings on this. But it seems to be that this is the drum they're beating. It's the timing argument that we've gone over for day after day. And then it's other people, Christopher Kamen, these other people did it, but not, again, directly answering the question. And that is, did Tom Girardi do this? And if, that's really what I think the jury wants to know. If he didn't do this, show us the evidence that he did not do this. You're not showing us that. You're making excuses for him. And you're saying there's all these other people with bad behavior. But like I said yesterday, so what? Yeah, they have bad behavior. That doesn't mean it equates to Tom Girardi as an angel and a saint and not liable for taking money from his clients.
So they're just kind of picking around the edges, not really getting to the heart of the matter. A lot of the time was spent yesterday with two former secretaries, Kim Corey and Shirlene Fujimoto. We talked about Shirlene Fujimoto before. She's been on the stand for a couple days now. And the defense attorney is going on and on about what a mess Tom Girardi's office is. He seems confused as of 2019, 2020. We've talked about that before too. And that checks would get lost in his office because his office was such a mess. He would have to dictate responses to emails because he didn't use a computer, and somehow not using a computer, helps him not be guilty. I don't know. I don't understand why. But it seemed like in the reporter that we've been following, Amanda Bronstad of law.com, she pointed out that Schneider, the defense attorney, seemed to be struggling with getting both of these assistants to really say what he wanted them to say, which is somebody else was overriding Tom's decisions, somebody else was making the decisions, somebody else was not listening to Tom Girardi. They refused to go quite that far, and I don't think that they provided strong signature or strong testimony because they weren't really able to nail that down. One of the things they did say is that, anybody had access to Girardi's electronic signature. And one of the partners at Girardi and Keese said, anybody could mimic his signature by a scribble, but only Tom Girardi could sign off on checks for the trust account. And that's the important point in my mind, I think.
Well, yeah, and show us the fraud. Show us these other people that are actually calling up clients and telling them that the California Supreme Court justice, who's retired now, is overseeing their settlement. My understanding is Tom Girardi told that to his clients. Tom would spin tales to his clients on why he couldn't pay them and how court orders had to be entered into on settlements that were outside of the court jurisdiction. I think at one point he said an Arizona court needed to speak about a California case and a California settlement. He would rush his clients off the phone. He would get angry at them when they would challenge him. So these are all things that Tom Girardi did. And so we can look at what his assistants have to say, and Shirlene Fujimoto and Kim Corey, they seem like sympathetic people. We're not in the courtroom, but you can just imagine being dragged into this. They're just hardworking Americans. They happen to work at a really prestigious firm that had a very good reputation at one point in time, and now they have to see this fall from grace and this mess around them. But they're not giving the defense the answers the defense is really going for. There was some testimony, I think, from Corey that Girardi seemed more confused in 2019 and 2020. We've already heard that over and over again. And Keith, you and I know that this guy was 80 plus years old at that time. Who doesn't have a little confusion? The other question about his office being messy. Was his office messy for the last 20 years? And my gut tells me it was messy for the last 20 years. And that's just kind of how
just the guy he was.
Just the guy he was. Now,
right.
Certainly as he got older, as we all get older, we can't do the things we once did mentally. We can't do the things we once did physically. But that doesn't mean that you're incapable of understanding what you're doing. And that's where the defense is not answering the question for me as I'm reading these press clippings. Did Tom Girardi not know what he was doing? And it clearly shows he benefited himself 100% of the time, and he hurt other people 100% of the time. So he was consistent in that. And that's a rational actor. If you want to screw people, that's a rational actor taking care of themselves and hurting somebody else.
Yeah, and you've made the point in previous discussions about the Girardi trial that even with his confusion and his dementia and all that, money still went to Tom Girardi somehow. He wasn't giving extra money to clients. He was giving extra money to himself. And so that part, never seemed to be a confusion, for anybody. But the fact that Cayman came in and he also was stealing, that's a sideshow, I think. I mean, so what?
Maybe he's mimicking his boss. I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe. And they even, Snyder even asked one of the assistants, did you ever sign checks just to move things along without Tom Girardi's approval?
Nope.
And she said never. And did you ever override Tom Girardi? Never. I don't think we ever wrote Tom Girardi. And I think the ultimate conclusion, too, is that then when the prosecutor got back up and redirected on cross and specifically asked, was who could write checks on the trust account? Only Tom Girardi. And he also had the witness testify that no one else was in the office when Tom Girardi was dictating letters to clients. So nobody else was there saying, oh, no, don't say that, say this. It was Tom Girardi dictating the letters back to the clients that Fujimoto and Corey were writing down and sending off to clients. Again, it shows that he still at least is in charge enough to be able to dictate letters and send them out. And basically, the ultimate question that I think the prosecutor got out is, was anybody else in charge? Was anybody else able to override Tom Girardi? And the answer was no. He was the boss. He was in charge.
I think that's a really strong point. And so you got to imagine that this Shirlene Fujimoto, again, a very sympathetic person in my mind, probably doesn't want to be drawn into this. She's sitting there testifying, and the prosecutor is getting another go to ask her about the things that the defense asked her about and tried to establish, and ultimately says, was there anybody else at Girardi and Keese who had the power to tell Tom Girardi what to do? And she says, anybody above Tom? And then she just answered her own question. Well, no.
Right. Yeah. No, of course. He was the top dog. So, again, I think this evidence is stacking up pretty hard against Tom Girardi. The defense testimony or the defense witnesses don't appear to be enough, as you suggested, kind of picking at the edges. But we have 2 more days of testimony to go. Closing arguments will probably be next Monday. And then the real probably telltale sign is how long will the jury deliberate? And, on these cases, it always seems like when they deliberate for a short amount of time, it's probably going to be
bad news.
And if they deliberate for a long amount of time, it's probably better for Tom Girardi. Yeah. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But stay tuned, because we will be covering day 10 of the Tom Girardi trial when next we meet.